Alright, sports fans, and here we go into the sexual features portion of our show. Below are optional measures of the body. These are provided so the sexual dimension of role-play may be included at the main master's discretion. And if there's one thing main masters are likely to be known for, it's discretion. And of course, the first thing to start off the sexual features section is areola diameter, which handily is determined only by a D percentage roll. If male, it's D percentage minus 15, because out of 100, when you subtract that 15, it makes a lot of difference. And it really, although there are like 90 different types of elves that have their own stats everywhere else, when it comes to the areola, an elf is just an elf. And so you go to your race here. If you're an Anakim, a dwarf, an elf, a half-orc, a halfling, or a human, you take your D percentage roll, and there is the diameter in inches of your areola. Whether male or female, I presume, it doesn't say. And so we see that the real winners in areola size are the half-orcs, with a whopping 5-inch areola if you roll a 96 or above. Which someone I was talking to earlier tonight said was like a piece of bologna, which, yeah, that's not a very appetizing thought, but I guess that's probably pretty close to the size. And I'm now no longer hungry. Anyway, next is the Areola Hue, which is just a D percentage and doesn't matter about your race or gender. And if you roll a 1 to 10, it's difficult to identify. I'm not sure why. A color is a color. It's pretty much light, medium, or dark. I don't know if it's the color out of space from Lovecraft, or if it's translucent, or what. The author doesn't say. It's just difficult to identify. Why he couldn't just go with other, or even just leave it as 3 options, I don't know. Why he does what he does is anyone's guess. Whoops, too far. Then you go down to cup size, which is also D percentage. Though cup size are human expressions, the cup size herein is considered relative to each race. Okay. So we'll just say that there's such a thing as an Anakim, a dwarf, an elf, a halfling, and so on, cup size for double A, double D, and all this. So each race has their own B. Each race has their own C. For whatever reason. And the cup size modifiers are where people probably start to get a little uncomfortable, because skinny, you get a minus 25 to your D percent roll. You get a plus 25 to your percentile roll if you're pregnant. Fat people also get a plus 25, which I guess is sort of fitting, although I would kind of think it depends on what you consider fat. That's kind of a concrete cutoff. Either you're fat or you're not. You either get 25 or nothing. There's no chubby or anything. But age, child, 12 to 15 for human, you get minus 5. I think this is where people start getting uncomfortable. And the good news is there's more of this for people to be more uncomfortable about. And we go down here and we find that the most incredibly realistic game in the universe, or whatever he calls it, there's a scholarly study on female human bust size that indicates both males and females prefer a female with a medium bust size. Klein and Stanesky, 1980. Why he included that is, again, up for debate. And I don't know. I guess he was trying to prove that he went to college, maybe? Or knows how to use a footnote? I guess he does, so I guess I can give him credit there. And so moving on, we see after that very scholarly footnote, nipple length. D%. And if male, you again subtract 15 because that makes all the difference in the world. A nipple which is not erect may have no length whatsoever. A flaccid, inert nipple, in other words. I don't know why he didn't say that. I said that. It makes sense when I say it. But sense is not really what F.A.T.A.L is about. This table yields the maximum erect nipple length. Again, because the maximum erect nipple length is what you need in a role-playing game about fantasy creatures like fallen angels and half-orcs. So you roll your percentage, and again, anakims are the big winners, and they can have up to 3-inch long nipples. I remain unclear as to the utility of long nipples, and everything pretty much goes to 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 1/4 inches for all the other races. 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. So for reasons entirely unknown to me, pretty much everything but a half-orc has the same nipple length. Anakims have the most. Half-orcs have basically a little more. Why this needed its own table is, well, it's not really a question, because the answer is it didn't need its own table, but many things in F.A.T.A.L did not need its own table, and this is the best immediate example. And speaking of best immediate examples, well, I don't know. I guess it depends on the wording. I don't know if anything in F.A.T.A.L could be a best example. Best or worst example, depending on how you look at it. Vaginal circumference potential. Percentile roll. I can just imagine the GM, well, the MAME master, sitting around while someone's making up characters and he's helping them and saying, okay, you've got a female, so it's time to roll up your vaginal circumference potential. Roll percentile. And the double-chinned 45-year-old guy on the other side of the table says, alright, as he puts down his can of Mountain Dew and stops stuffing his face with Funyuns and picks up his 10-sided dice and rolls. Should any vagina be stretched beyond the limit as determined by the table below, which differs from woman to woman, the orifice will rip to accommodate the incoming object. And you'll see this phrase again later, paraphrased, so don't feel like you need to commit this to memory just yet. It will return. First, consider all relevant modifiers, because there are more than one. Then roll percentile dice and proceed to the following table. Okay, here we go to start. Modifiers for your vaginal circumference potential. And remember where people were uncomfortable? This is where we start again. Age, puberty. Minus 25 when you start rolling for vaginal circumference potential. If your character is at puberty, you get a minus 25 to your roll. If you're a young adult, you get no modifier. If you're middle age, you get a plus 10, and so on, old age, venerable. If you're a mother, you get plus 6 to 26, which is a d20 plus 5. If you're a nymphomaniac, you get a d20 plus 10. He separated it from... I can't even believe I'm making this argument, but he separated it from mother, and then he separated slut from nymphomaniac. He doesn't say what a slut is. He makes no differentiation, but it's 1d20 if unsure. That plus 1 2 plus 1 plus 1 2 20. I don't think he even knew what he was doing on this table, and so I guess we're in good company since the author had no clue. I'm not sure if he knows what a nymphomaniac is because he included slut, and then I don't know. I'm not sure that three more results on this chart were necessary. I think a d20 with maybe a modifier, if he just had to have something, would have worked. I'm also not quite sure about why this is a plus 10 and then goes back to plus 5, but it does, and so there you go. At any rate, we go next to apparently vaginal depth potential, although the circumference, I guess, is continued with this percentage roll, with the first column is equivalent from same species. If your roll is a less than a 6, you can only get 2 fingers in the vagina, and if it's over a 95, you can get a man of your species fist into the vagina. 51 to 85 is thick unit. He uses all kinds of terms all through the rest of the game, but here he chooses to use the word unit. I really don't have a reply to this because I don't know what he was thinking or what. Again, I don't know what the point is, why this is important. I've never had a GM stop a game, even those that were depraved enough to say, wait, we need at least some makeshift sex rules. Somebody's trying to make out in the game. I sure wish I knew whether 2 fingers or a fist fit in this NPC's vagina. I don't know, but the simulation is there if you need it in F.A.T.A.L. Anicums, here's the inch circumference, 5 to 6 inches all the way up to 20. My brain won't let me think about that, so I'm glad. See, and here, dwarf, elf, half-orc, and human are all included in this same chart that ranges from 3 to 15 inches. But then halfling is off by itself, which is 1 inch difference. Since halflings don't exist as their own race, I'm not sure exactly how this can be realistic and accurate. I don't know if he's going with the idea that, I don't know if he's using statistics for what are they called, little people or dwarves or midgets or whatever, but then again, what are orcs? Are they thyroid giants? I don't see the point of having 1 inch difference be its own chart. This 20, I guess, if you have to have a separate column for vaginal circumference potential for different races, I can see the Anakim being different since they are giants than the rest of the demi-humans. But why would you not just include the halfling and just let it be poetic license, artistic license, that all the races can have the same... Again, I can't believe I'm arguing this, but anyway. Then vaginal depth potential is 2d 20%. No object may be fully inserted into a vagina if it is longer than the female's vaginal depth potential. In such extreme situations, internal damage may occur, though this is best left to the MM. A female's vaginal depth potential equals her height in feet converted to inches, such as a female of 5'6" becoming equivalent to 5.5 inches, and then 2d 20% is added. He undoubtedly gets this strange proportional mathematical formula from somewhere, because he uses it for what's his term, manhood length. It's somehow related to height, I think, and to me it smacks of the same thing of shoe size. I don't know. Let's see if there's more on this. No, but, and this is a treat here. We go on to tongue size, and it's a D percentile roll. Instead of measuring the length of the entire tongue, so he's really going out on a limb here, he's really kind of mixing it up. The feature lists only the length of the tongue that may be extended outside of the mouth of a character. So your effective tongue length, in other words, your manifest tongue length, if you will, what you can do something with, your external active tongue. Okay, I won't go any further with that, but anyway, that's essentially what he's saying. Whatever you can do something with. I don't know why. I don't know why he's differentiating it, but then again, I don't know why there's a tongue length. So roll percentile dice and consult the following table. And again, the Anakim has its own, Halfling has their own, and then everything else. And again, there's 1 inch difference between halflings and normal humans. 1 to 10 is tiny tongue, and 99 to 100 is tip reach, top of nose. I think he just got lazy there and decided he didn't want something that was more than 1 line long, so he just quasi-abbreviated. He didn't actually abbreviate, he just cut out words. Tip may touch chin. This should be tip may reach top of nose, but that was too long, and I guess his charts are only a certain width. So tip may reach top of nose. So 6 inches is how far an Anakim's tongue could extend outside their mouth. And again, what good this does is unknown. And anal circumference potential, another percentile roll, because it's worked so well so far. Should any anus be stretched, and here's that quote again. Should any anus be stretched beyond the limit as determined by the table below, which differs from anus to anus, the orifice will rip to accommodate the incoming object. First, consider all relevant modifiers, yada yada. And again, this is where people get rather uncomfortable. and it starts with age puberty. So you are determining the anal circumference potential of puberty, of young adult, nymphomaniacs, saturmaniacs. I don't remember him using that on... Oh, it's because it was a female measurement, I guess. And then accustomed to anal sex. But he didn't put slut, just accustomed to anal sex. I guess he has a different criteria. And again, the finger and fist measurement of apparently the gold standard of circumference potentials for orifices and F.A.T.A.L. And again, his need to have multiple columns and charts for things like this. Now here's the treat. The tongue and anal circumference potential charts are on page 69. I'm not going to say anything else, just they're on page 69. And we continue. Ripped orifice. Should a vagina or anus stretch to accommodate entry of an object which exceeds the vaginal or anal circumference potential, damage may result to the individual due to a ripped orifice. Capital R, capital O. One of these stretched to twice its limit results in the necessity of a health check at TH70. TH is some sort of a threshold. It's a percentage roll, I'm pretty sure. If this check fails, then death occurs. Of course, it is stretching an anus or vagina to twice its size, so yeah, that would be pretty traumatic and would cause an awful lot of blood loss. If successful for a female character, the skin between the vagina and anus rips and the two orifices effectively become one. No, that's not how that works. I'm almost certain he had to take biology, anatomy. I'm almost certain he did. The two orifices don't become one, effectively or otherwise. If it's successful for a male character, the skin rips into the scrotum. But he doesn't say what this means. Damage is a percent of the life points equal to the extent of the ripping. But I don't know what the extent of the ripping means. Is that a percent of the damage? Is that the damage points? Is that how much it was stretched? Why am I asking that? I don't think I actually want to know. Anyway, so hymen resistance. A hymen is a membrane that, when broken, is used to indicate that a woman is no longer a virgin. Thanks for that. Each player of a female character may, at their option, determine the hymen resistance of the character by rolling 5d20. For every time the female character has intercourse, which, who knows, it may even be consensual, a couple of times, she must roll percentile dice to see if the hymen breaks, and it may only break once. So he's very, because remember, this is the most incredibly realistically resolved game that the ancients ever invented before Christ walked the earth, or whatever his motto is. Results greater than her hymen resistance indicate her hymen has been broken. Blood will seep from her vagina. The phrase blood will seep from her vagina in a tabletop role-playing game seems superfluous to me. That's That's one phrase anyway, superfluous. That's one word that it seems superfluous. Common folk consider an unbroken hymen indicative of virginity, though in reality the woman may either have a high hymen resistance or never have accommodated sufficient manhood, capital M, because that is another stat. Pregnancy likelihood. Fertile woman has less than 1% chance of becoming pregnant. High sperm count. Completed intercourse. Sperm count, capital S, capital C. Or load size in parentheses. Load size. Load size. Check. Sperm count check. That means this is a mechanic. Load size check. There is a mechanic. There is a dice roll. Like the rape roll. Except this is the sperm count check. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and make a sperm count check while you're doing that? It's like he's picking a lock, only it's not a lock. And by picking a lock, I mean impregnating somebody. Average loads contain 200 million sperm. If he rolls 20 or less, 80 million sperm or less, then his sperm count was insufficient to impregnate the woman. Every ejaculation within 24-hour period incurs cumulative penalties of -30 to sperm count checks. This is important to know, I guess. Call me crazy. My friend that runs Warhammer, that actually has a player character that has a wife and has been trying to have a baby. I think he rolls just like a percentage dice every month or something, and I think he adds like 1% or 5 or 10 every month to see if she gets pregnant. I don't think he's ever going to need to implement this. I don't think he ever would. But he doesn't have the most difficult, realistic, challenging, virile role-playing game in the history of the universe either, so I suppose that's his loss. Results greater than 1% indicate she did not become pregnant. The statistic concerning fertility has been referenced from Microsoft Encarta Encyclopedia 99. There he is again with his infallible bookmarks. Menstruation, because you need that in the game. It's periodic vaginal discharge. For those of you that didn't know and would like to giggle along at home, it occurs to all races, available to all players, as well as most mammals. Accompanies a woman's childbearing years. Punishments from common belief is it's a punishment from the gods for being female. If pregnancy does not occur, smelly blood may flow from the lining of the uterus, seeping out of the vagina. Twice he's used the phrase seeping out of the vagina. Why does a role-playing game need this phrase at all, but in the name of God twice? 3 plus 1d6 minus 1 days. There is a dice formula in this heading. Why? The menstrual period, though colloquially it is known as the rag, since women secure rags on their crotch to catch the blood and prevent it from running down their legs. Stay classy, Byron Hall. 28 days. I mean, he's just... Did he teach human sexuality? Why did he include all this? 50% of women experience premenstrual discomfort, namely tender breasts and a tendency. You know where this is going. A tendency to retain fluid known as bloating 1d8 minus 1 days prior to menstruation. 40% of women experience D6 of the following symptoms. That's right. Roll a D6. Headaches, irritability, nervousness, fatigue, crying spells, and 6, depression with no apparent cause. A few women, 10%, also experience menstrual cramps during the first day or two of the period. If they experience irritability, the choleric part of their temperament, which uses the sanguine and choleric temperaments, I don't know why, it may increase by D100 during menstruation. He doesn't explain why. Depression, the melancholic part may... The guy's insane. Infant mortality rate. 25% for the Anakim. The fallen angels, the giants. 5% dwarf. 1% elf. 20% half-orc. 15% human. The probability of death in the first year of life. That's great. I feel better about myself in this game already. Let's get to playing. But no! It's time to determine manhood. So let's do it. The height or length of the character or creature in feet, yes, here we go, is converted directly to inches. 6 foot equals 6 inches. 5'10" equals 5.83 inches. This is the base length of his manhood. Then roll 4d100 because that is a popular dice permutation. Divide the sum by 2 and subtract 1. That's his same one for his sub-ability scores. 4d100 divided by 2 minus 1. That minus 1 continues to grate on me. Consult the table below. If your manhood roll was 82, your size modifier is minus 16%. If it was 150, it's plus 91%. So you almost get double your manhood. And the resulting percentage is applied to the base length. So if you're 6 foot tall, that's 91%. You add another 91% of 6 inches. That's long. That's long or tall or whatever you want to call it. A manhood roll of 115 indicates a size modifier of plus 28%. If the character were 6 feet tall, then his length of his manhood would now be 7.68 inches. Thank God we now can determine this. We have the technology. This is the shortest measurable length, taken from the top or belly button side, not the bottom or testicular side, and constitutes all that a woman may take from a missionary position. Do you think he got married? However, if the woman were to mount the manhood from above while facing her partner, is this necessary, really? Did his playtest and focus group, whoever they were, whatever the voices in his head, did they really say, you know, these rules are good, but I have questions. What if we did it from this direction? What if we did it from this position? What if the woman were doing this? You don't have any rules for that. And he said, you're right. I need to append something. she would actually take 1.15 times the base length, accounting for the remainder. For instance, the base length of 6 inches, with experimentation, it is possible for the woman to enjoy 6.9 inches. And if you remove that period, that decimal, that's 69, hey? I don't know what, I don't know. The determined manhood length is now multiplied by 0.85. This is the base circumference of the manhood in question. Why do you need to know that? Finally, roll 4d100 divided by 2 minus 1. Observe the size modifier on the table above. Okay. And apply this modifier to the base circumference to determine the actual circumference of the manhood. Because you need to know how thick it is in case you have, what was it he said earlier, a thick unit. I think it was. To know if it's 2 fingers or a fist thick. So you'll know if it fits in a vagina or an anus, I guess. I presume that's how it works. He probably presumes that's how it works too. These features are not usually determined during character creation, so of course here they are in the character creation section. Unless the player so desires. They rarely become necessary components of the game. I would hope none of these are necessary components of the game, but it is F.A.T.A.L. I still think this is the most elaborate troll setup ever. I still don't believe anyone has ever played this. Foot size. Now see, all these other things above, he puts forth as being important. Foot size, he's like, yeah, it's I guess it's optional. If people really want to determine their foot size, it's kind of flumpy. There's not really any point in it, but I guess you could determine that. So he takes something that people in everyday life actually do determine and know, like the size of your own foot, what size shoe you wear, and he's like, I guess you could keep track of that and know what size shoe you wear. Who does that though? Everybody knows their vaginal circumference potential. On one hand, I would like to meet the guy just to see what kind of a person he is, and on the other hand, I would never ever want to meet the guy. But anyway, foot size percentage, the length of inches of a character's foot. Consider the height of the character. Is this real? Is this a legitimate formula? Consult the height table at the beginning of this chapter. For each inch a character is taller than the average height for a character of the appropriate gender and race, add 10 to the... Why doesn't he just have the chart again? Why would you have to go back? I mean, at any rate, you roll percentage again here, and then if you get and there's his 3-column special, and Anakim can have 20-inch or 18-inch. There are professional wrestlers with bigger feet than this. I wear a 13. That's weird. Something as simple as foot size, he seemed to have really dropped the ball on. Vaginal circumference potential and all that, he really seemed to do his homework, but foot size, he probably wears loose-fitting or tight-fitting shoes. Can't dress himself, but he knows how many fingers goes into a vagina. Handedness. D%. How can you get this wrong? 1 to 10, you're left-handed. 11 or higher, you're right-handed. Okay, I'll give him credit for that. There wasn't much to it.